The Blue Moccasins. The fashion in women changes nowadays even faster than women's fashions. At 20, Lena McLeod was almost painfully modern. At 60, almost obsolete. She started off life to be really independent. In that remote day 40 years ago, when a woman said she was going to be independent, it meant she was having no nonsense with men. She was kicking over the masculine traces and living her own life, manless. Today, when a girl says she's going to be independent, it means she's going to devote her attentions almost exclusively to men, though not necessarily to a man. Miss McLeod had an income from her mother. Therefore, at the age of 20, she turned her back on that image of tyranny, her father, and went to Paris to study art. Art having been studied, she turned her attention to the globe of Earth. Being terribly independent, she soon made Africa look small, she dallied energetically with vast hinterlands of China, and she knew the Rocky Mountains and the deserts of Arizona as if she had been married to them. All this to escape mere man. It was in New Mexico she purchased the blue moccasins, blue bead moccasins, from an Indian who was her guide and her subordinate. In her independence she made use of men, of course, but merely as servants, subordinates. When the war broke out, she came home. She was then 45, and already going grey. Her brother, 2 years older than herself, but a bachelor, went off to the war. She stayed at home in the small family mansion in the country and did what she could. She was small and erect and brief in her speech. Her face was like pale ivory, her skin like a very delicate parchment, and her eyes were very blue. There was no nonsense about her, though she did paint pictures. She never even touched her delicately parchment face with pigments. She was good enough as she was, honest to God, and the country town had a tremendous respect for her. In her various activities, she came pretty often in contact with Percy Barlow, the clerk at the bank. He was only 22 when she first set eyes on him in 1914, and she immediately liked him. He was a stranger in town, his father being a poor country vicar in Yorkshire, but he was of the confiding sort. He soon confided in Miss McLeod, for whom he had a towering respect, how he disliked his stepmother, how he feared his father, was but at wax in the hands of that downright woman, and how, in consequence, he was homeless. Wrath shone in his pleasant features, but somehow it was an amusing wrath, at least to Miss McLeod. He was distinctly a good-looking boy, with stiff dark hair and odd twinkling grey eyes under thick dark brows, and a rather full mouth and a queer, deep voice that had a caressing touch of hoarseness. It was his voice that somehow got behind Miss McLeod's reserve. Not that he had the faintest intention of doing so. He looked up to her immensely. She's miles above me. When she watched him playing tennis, letting himself go a bit too much, hitting too hard, running too fast, being too nice to his partner, her heart yearned over him, the orphan in him. Why should he go and be shot? She kept him at home as long as possible, working with her at all kinds of war work. He was so absolutely willing to do everything she wanted, devoted to her. But at last the time came when he must go. He was now 24 and she was 47. He came to say goodbye in his awkward fashion. She suddenly turned away, leaned her forehead against the wall and burst into bitter tears. He was frightened out of his wits. Before he knew what was happening, he had his arm in front of his face and was sobbing too.